normally conditioned American who's been trained to kill and then to have no memory of having killed. Without memory of his deed, he cannot possibly feel guilt, nor will he, of course, have any reason to fear being caught. And having been relieved of those uniquely American symptoms, guilt and fear, he cannot possibly give himself away.
I told them to build me an assassin. I wanted a killer from a world filled with killers, and they chose you.
It's a terrible thing to hate your mother. But I didn't always hate her.
The preceding is from Richard Condon's novel, The Manchurian Candidate, which in 1962 became a hit movie, in which Lawrence Harvey played Raymond Shaw, a highly decorated prisoner of war who was brainwashed by his North Korean captors to become a robot assassin programmed to murder the president. Unknown to millions of people who thrilled to this taut tale in theaters across America, the Central Intelligence Agency, at the time, through its MK-Ultra program, was devoting large resources to see if by drugs, electroshock, or hypnotism, a robot assassin could in fact be created. Common wisdom, of course, holds that a person cannot be programmed to do something that he would find morally objectionable. But not everyone believes that.
After receiving a small dose of LSD, they're confused and undisciplined.
The notion that you can't be hypnotized to do something you're not morally inclined to do was clearly disproved by our government.
Dr. Philip Melanson is the author of the recently released book, The Robert Kennedy Assassination, in which he investigates the hypnoprogramming aspects of the Kennedy murder. Dr. Melanson has spent over a decade looking through government mind control files.
The experts that they had doing this kind of research believed you could do that. They demonstrated how it could be done both in their own practices and in their work for the government. And millions of dollars was spent and hundreds of people were worked on and were made to do those things. And the successful uses of hypno-programmed persons as couriers and spies is admitted by the government. The government refuses to admit assassination, but clearly they had that technology available as well. And it can be done. The mainstream of the medical profession and the experts think it can't be done or choose to believe it can't be done. But the broad group working for the government believed it could be done and demonstrated that they could do it.
From the moment Sirhan was caught with the smoking gun to this day as he serves a life sentence in a California prison, Sirhan claims to have no memory of killing Bobby Kennedy. In what appeared to be an open and shut case, Sirhan's lawyers never contested his guilt. They merely sought to prove him insane, incapable of planning the assassination. But the jury convicted Sirhan of first-degree premeditated murder. They concluded he was a politically motivated assassin, a lone gunman who was faking his amnesia to avoid punishment. But some experts investigating the assassination believe Sirhan's amnesia is genuine. They offer a highly controversial theory for the cause of Sirhan's lack of memory.
Sirhan's lack of memory for the murder of Robert Kennedy was genuine, and it was established by both the defense and the prosecution before the trial. Sirhan himself badly wanted to remember what had happened. After all, he was caught with a smoking gun, so he wanted very badly to remember, and he worked hard at it, but he was still unable to come up with any motive or any memory of the crime.
Sirhan remembers the events just prior to the shooting and just after his capture, but claims to have a lapse in memory during the actual shooting.
Do you remember drinking coffee?
I remember being around the coffee.
You don't remember anything at all after that? What do you remember when you got back and after you've had some coffee?
I was choking like a son of a bitch.
Choking?
I was choking.
Choking on what?
They grabbed my throat.
Oh, you mean after the shooting?
Yeah.
I see.
Psychiatrists for both the defense and prosecution testified that Sirhan did have amnesia for the assassination. But to this day, no psychiatrist has found any evidence of psychosis in Sirhan, which scientists consider another possible cause of amnesia. Melanson became convinced that Sirhan's lack of memory is the result of being hypnotized and programmed to kill.
After 15 years of analyzing the evidence and interviewing experts and witnesses, the only logical conclusion in this case, from my mind, is that Sirhan was a programmed assassin, programmed to show up shooting at Robert Kennedy, and programmed not to remember.
Is the programmed assassination theory merely the plot of a Hollywood movie? Or is it really possible to hypnotize someone to kill? Dr. Herbert Spiegel is one of the world's leading experts on hypnosis. He has taught hypnosis at the Columbia University Medical School for over 20 years and is the inventor of the standardized test for measuring a subject's hypnotizability. He believes there is circumstantial evidence that suggests Sirhan was hypnotized to kill.
The total and complete amnesia that Sirhan demonstrated from the very beginning to this very day suggests strongly that he was A, highly hypnotizable, and B, programmed to perform that act.
Hypnosis played a major role in Sirhan's trial, as psychiatrists for the defense and prosecution hypnotized Sirhan at least 6 times in an effort to unlock his memory.
You're right in the kitchen now.
In one session under hypnosis, Sirhan was induced to reenact the shooting.
Look, Senator Kennedy is here.
The psychiatrist reported that Sirhan nearly choked as he relived being strangled, just as in his actual capture.
Stay away from the gun.
This incident is one of many that Dr. Spiegel found in his review of the court psychiatrist's reports that lead him to believe that Sirhan falls into the highest category of hypnotizability.
Only about 5 to 10% of the population are that highly hypnotizable. He comes under the category of what might be called the hypnotic virtuosos.
In fact, Sirhan's high hypnotizability, which allowed him to slip into spontaneous trances, was the basis of the defense's argument. His lawyers argued that Sirhan involuntarily shifted into a hypnotic trance and therefore carried out the assassination without planning it ahead of time. The possibility that someone else may have hypnotized Sirhan was never presented in court. But Dr. Spiegel believes that the circumstantial evidence, Sirhan's desire to be hypnotized, his extreme compliance under hypnosis, his amnesia to the assassination event, all suggest that Sirhan appears to be an ideal candidate to be hypnotized. But can someone be hypnotized to kill?
Yes, it is possible to instruct a highly hypnotizable person to perform many acts, including assassination.
For the past 10 years, this eminent Californian lawyer has been investigating the links between hypnosis, the American security agencies, and murder.
Can hypnosis be used to influence people to commit illegal or immoral acts?
There's generally a folklore that it can't be so used, and I think the reason for the folklore, for one, is to discourage people from trying, and two, because it took a while for hypnosis to establish itself as a valid therapeutic technique. Now that we know that it is a valid therapeutic technique, we can also see that just as it can be used for good, it can be used for evil. For example, in 1954, 4 years before the Manchurian Candidate novel had been published, the Central Intelligence Agency had a team to build Manchurian candidates to commit assassinations. And one of the most frightening memos that I've read is an experiment that they wanted to run to be able to program somebody to assassinate a foreign head of state or an American official.
Surely this is just some conspiracy theory. What evidence is there to really support this?
I'm interested in the historical fact, and the historical fact for me has come from Central Intelligence Agency documents. And the documents definitely establish that by 1954, the CIA, or at least the component that did the hypnosis research, was convinced that they could program people into committing assassinations. A more recent experimentation by the Central Intelligence Agency suggests that they have conducted a series of what they call terminal experiments. And these are experiments which will end in the death of the subjects. In one set of letters from the CIA to a researcher, they asked the researcher if he would be willing to conduct terminal experiments. And the researcher said he'd do it for free.
Sniper, aren't you? Sniper. Why did you try to kill me? I had to kill him. I had to. Oh, snap out of it. Stop it, Watson. He's shamming. No, he isn't. Who told you to kill me? She told me. She told you? She told me I couldn't miss. Well, luckily you did miss, you murderer. Isn't a murderer, Watson? Listen, Corporal Williams. She told you you had to do it, didn't she? I had to do it. I've got it, Watson, I've got it. Got what? The method used in the finger murders. Well, what is it? Hypnotism, my dear fellow, hypnotism.
This eerie, foreboding structure, also known as Ravenscrag, became a house of psychological horrors, all under the watchful eye of one of the world's leading physicians, Dr. Ewan Cameron.
The story of Dr. Ewan Cameron is one of the most tragic, but one of the most clearly visible stories of what happened during the mind control experimentation days.
Using unknowing Canadian citizens as test subjects, Cameron had developed a new procedure which caught the eye of the MK Ultra researchers, as well as the Canadian intelligence community. He was hired by the CIA and the Canadian government to further explore the treatment, which he called psychic driving.
First, Cameron proposed that they would use intensive electroshock and LSD and other disorienting drugs to, in his terms, de-pattern individuals, basically to wipe the slate clean. Second, using tape-recorded messages, try to program in new behaviors by repeating these messages hundreds of thousands of times, while the victim was immobilized with other drugs. And the final phase was to try to wipe the slate clean so that people could not, again, remember what had happened to them, but still have the new behavior.
The psychic driving experiments literally reduced the person to a vegetable. One of the group of people was a man called Robert Logie, who lives in Vancouver. He was also a victim of these psychic driving experiments where tape loops were played countless hours per day, many months in a row.
I heard 4 words, and it's very hard for me to say. 4 words I remember where you killed your mother.
None of this, of course, was therapeutic. None of it was warranted by the conditions under which the people had gone to the institute. None of it was done with consent, and none of it was done with the awareness of the people that they were experimental guinea pigs in an advanced brainwashing experiment.
Another of Cameron's patients who endured months of mental torture was Linda MacDonald.
I think there were about 80 of us. We discovered that these 80 people were just ordinary, everyday people. It could have been you, it could have been me, it was me. It could have been anybody who just walked through the doors of the Allen Memorial on the wrong day at the wrong time when Dr. Cameron needed another schizophrenic for his fun little stuff upstairs.
Linda MacDonald started off as a pretty much normal person. She basically came into the hospital as a mother with many young children who was a little overwhelmed and depressed for just routine psychiatric treatment.
And 3 weeks after I was there, I was shipped up to the sleep ward. And I came out of there a vegetable 5 months later.
By the time someone was in the sleep room, the ability of that individual to remember or describe what happened to them was very limited. So the descriptions that there are from nurses and from other people who worked at the facility, and their descriptions are, to quote one, like something out of Dante's Inferno.
Within the walls of this living hell, patients would be subjected to electroshock therapy that went well beyond the professionally accepted guidelines of 4 to 8 treatments.
I received a total of 109 electroconvulsive shock treatments. In less than 5 weeks, I had 86 straight comatose days where I was completely out of it. The purpose for all of this was to wipe from my memory, to take a life, to wipe it completely clean. So I would not have a memory ever. When I came out of the treatment and they had decided that my memory was wiped sufficiently, I didn't know who I was. I was a baby. They had to toilet train me, and they had to teach me to walk and talk and feed myself.
She has absolutely zero direct memory of her life before age 25. Now, it doesn't take long to figure out why the CIA or other intelligence agencies would be interested in such research.
Well, if Cameron can get it to work for a psychiatric patient, well, then they can use the same thing to deprogram somebody and put them back together for a brainwashing scenario.
It would not be until years later, after an emotional divorce from her husband and the painful loss of custody of her children, that Linda MacDonald would learn of the hidden purpose behind the treatment she had received.
This big headline saying, Dr. Cameron, CIA, brainwashing experiments, and I stopped breathing for a minute. You could have knocked me over. I knew Dr. Cameron was my doctor. I knew I had been at the Allen Memorial. But up until that moment, I believed, because that's what I was told, that the doctor had fixed me, had done to me great things, and I was lucky that he had been my doctor. So I couldn't not read the article, and as I read it, I was just horrified.
My participation in it was in terms of trying to evaluate the behavior that was described. I don't think I can add anything that that hasn't already been. Frankly, it's an area I don't like to talk about. It's not that but I don't like to talk about it.
This is the Allen Memorial Institute in Montreal, one of Canada's most highly respected psychiatric hospitals. In 1956, the director of psychiatry here was Dr. Ewan Cameron, one of the country's most highly regarded psychiatrists. Patients were referred to him by doctors from all over the world. Dr. Cameron was doing research of his own in the field of brainwashing. He was fascinated by the mind control he had heard described in countries behind the Iron Curtain. The CIA was fascinated too. The court case alleged that the CIA backed Dr. Cameron's horrific experiments that were conducted on more than 70 patients, forcing them to endure 3 tormenting phases of so-called treatment. First, according to the complaint, Dr. Cameron and others would give patients mind-altering drugs like LSD and angel dust. They would mask them and force them to inhale laughing gas. They would give them high-voltage electric shocks several times a day, effectively turning the patients into vegetables. Once the patients were immobilized, Dr. Cameron would play what were called psychic driving tapes, messages that were repeated up to 500,000 times. Finally, Dr. Cameron would put the patients to sleep with massive amounts of barbiturates. These sleep episodes could last 50 days or longer.
They took me in a room outside the ward, in a very little room, and they put 3 or 4 pillows at the end of the bed, and there were 4 doctors at the end of the bed there, and one doctor was putting me a mask there. The doctors started from left to right there, telling me, kill him, 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 kill him. What did they want to make me kill? I'll never know. They never told me, I don't know.
By the early 1970s, word of the CIA's mind control atrocities began to leak out to the public. An investigation was launched, resulting in the creation of 1 presidential commission and 2 Senate committees.
And my feeling now is that the CIA had overall powers that put them in a different situation than other people.
The American public was in shock.
I am terribly upset that the system is such that what happened could happen.
Their search for answers, however, would soon hit a dead end, as investigators learned that Dr. Sidney Gottlieb had destroyed the majority of the documents relating to the MK-Ultra program. It was now impossible for the American public to discover the truth about what the CIA learned from its mind control research. Officially, the agency's position would be that 30 years of aggressive experimentation had yielded few, if any, productive results.
You know what day it is today, Cap?
Yeah.
What? What day of the week?
Wait a minute. Don't bug me.
Sirhan's own diary does repeatedly refer to mind control.
You say that Sirhan was programmed, controlled, almost brainwashed to kill Robert Kennedy. It sounds like science fiction. As a matter of fact, it sounds like you watched the Manchurian Candidate movie one time too many.
What people don't understand about the Manchurian Candidate theory and the movie is that that movie was based on Condon's conversations, as I understand it, with people who were actually involved in CIA mind control research.
But if one concedes that a hypno-programmed assassin is a possibility, what evidence is there that Sirhan was in some sort of trance at the time of the murder?
I think the best evidence for Sirhan's hypno-programming comes from, first of all, his behavior before, during, and after the crime. This spacey demeanor and his chills afterwards, his blocking sensation when being interrogated. There's the fact that he was the perfect hypnotic subject, and that was easily demonstrated by his doctors. And then there is the bizarre fact that he genuinely could not recall the crime, how he got there, how the shooting unfolded. So that the tracks of programming really seem to be there in Sirhan's behavior and memory loss.
Witnesses in the pantry at the Ambassador Hotel would seem to support Dr. Melanson's conclusions. During the shooting itself, Sirhan summoned extraordinary strength as he fought Roosevelt Grier and Rayford Johnson, who were unable to pry the gun from his hand for almost 40 seconds. Feats of unusual strength are often associated with hypnotic trances. Yet despite the shooting and the struggle that followed, onlookers were taken aback by the contented look on the gunman's face. In The Manchurian Candidate, robot assassin Raymond Shaw commits murder without any memory of his deed. As a cinematic plot device, this is perfectly acceptable, but otherwise it's a very bizarre notion. Yet here, in the person of Sirhan, we have this unlikely circumstance. A perpetrator caught gun in hand who apparently, genuinely, cannot remember anything about the murder. He never claimed that he didn't do it. He didn't say he shouldn't be punished. He says only that he cannot remember. His memory of the evening stops as he is having coffee with a pretty girl and begins again with people pounding on him after the shooting. Listen to the plaintive words of the defendant's mother, Mary Sirhan.
I asked him, I said, son, will you tell me why did you do that? His tears began to drop. He said, Mama, I'm sorry. I don't remember anything. I was told that I killed Senator Robert Kennedy.
The defendant's inability to recall anything about the assassination led to a most bizarre scene in Sirhan's jail cell before the trial, as Dr. Seymour Pollack, psychiatrist for the prosecution, and Dr. Bernard Diamond, psychiatrist for the defense, together hypnotized Sirhan in an effort to get him to remember the crime.
And you see Kennedy coming. Now what do you see, Sirhan? You're back in the kitchen now. What do you see? Sirhan. What's he doing here? What? That son of a bitch. You son of a bitch. You're talking to Kennedy. She's coming. Reach for your gun, Sirhan. It's your last chance, Sirhan. Reach for your gun. Where is your gun? Where is your gun? Reach for it. Reach for it, Sirhan. Reach for your gun. Reach for your gun. Sirhan, take the gun out and shoot it. Who are you shooting, Sirhan? Who are you shooting? You're shooting Kennedy now, huh?
Of course, one might wonder at what point a session like this stops becoming a search for recollection and instead becomes a memory implant. Listen as Sirhan is being brought out of his trance.
Sirhan, you had wanted to remember the shooting of Kennedy. You wanted to remember your shooting. Now you'll remember shooting. You'll remember taking the gun out, pulling the trigger again and again and again. You'll remember all of this. You'll remember all of it. All of this will get clearer and clearer, become clearer and clearer, and you'll remember all of it. You'll remember it all.
But as a subsequent solo interview with prosecution psychiatrist Dr. Seymour Pollack reveals, the forces against Sirhan's remembering were so strong as to resist even this hypnotic suggestion.
In my opinion, Sirhan, I don't think you have any chance. I really don't. I don't. Because the jury, listening, will be negative rather than positive to you if you don't remember. Now, I say this, and I don't want you to fake. I don't want you to make up anything.
You hypnotize me, and whatever I say under hypnosis, or under this truth serum, whatever the hell it is, I will say it when I'm conscious. But right now, as I speak to you now, sir, I have no recollection.
The thing that bothers me is that you say you don't even remember any part of it, anything you've written there. Not a single damn thing. That bothers me. How could you carry a gun from your car back to the Ambassador Hotel and not know that you had it? What did you think it was in there? Applesauce?
In his solo jail cell interview with Sirhan, prosecution psychiatrist Dr. Seymour Pollack seems genuinely disturbed by Sirhan's lack of memory. But, as we shall hear, that fact doesn't prevent him from coaching the prisoner on what his motive might have been. Sirhan, however, remains confused. Maybe I am crazy, he says. I don't know what to tell you. I just can't explain it. Pollack then reminds him that other people were wounded, and Sirhan, hardly sounding like a murdering fanatic, responds, "What did they do to me that they had to be hurt?"
That's the picture I've gotten from you, the feelings about you, this intense Arab nationalist who feels the American political figures letting the Arab world down. In other words, your trial is a trial in which you are sort of accusing America of burying a million Arabs.
In fact,
if I assume then that this is so, that you really want the world to see the Arabs suffering and to see that American policy has helped that suffering, why, I say, don't you remember all of this? Why don't you remember clearly?
maybe maybe I am. Maybe I don't know it. And I'm not trying to tell you that there was no, but really, I can't explain it.
You know, a number of other people were shot too, were wounded, you know that, don't you?
What did they do to me that they had to be hurt?
I think that you had this pretty blind rage, anger, resentment. I mean, to you, at that time, Kennedy was really the biggest bastard in the world. He was the biggest son of a bitch.
Pollack here seems not to understand that he has asked a key question. If Sirhan murdered Robert Kennedy to make a political gesture on behalf of the dispossessed Palestinian Arabs, why doesn't he remember? And why such remorse? My own conscience doesn't agree with what I did, Sirhan says sadly. In what way? Pollack asks, taken aback. It's against my upbringing, says Sirhan. My childhood, family, church, prayers, the Bible and all this, sir. Sirhan, as many people don't know, was a Christian. Now returning to the quote. And here I go and splatter this guy's brains. It's just not me. It's just not me.
My own conscience doesn't agree with what I did.
Your own conscience?
My own conscience does not agree.
In what way?
It's against my upbringing, my very nature, sir. My childhood, you know, my family, the church, the prayers, the Bible, all this, thou shalt not kill. And here I go and splatter this guy's brains. It's just not me.
If we accept for the moment the possibility that Sirhan was a remote control assassin, the question then arises as to who could have programmed him. Suspicion has fallen in recent years on a small group of West Coast doctors who were active in secret CIA mind control experiments. The most flamboyant of these was the late Dr. William Bryan. Again, Dr. Philip Melanson.
William Bryan was, by his own admission, one of the primary researchers for the government in brainwashing, in hypnoprogramming, and in a variety of things. He was an out-of-control, super hypno character who exploited women through his hypnosis practice and was temporarily disbarred as a result. He bragged about his work for the government, said he was the czar of brainwashing, and he was also involved with the man I call Reasoner and with another man, all of whom worked together in Southern and Northern California, all of whom worked for the government, and my belief is that 2 of them, if not 3 of them, had something to do with Sirhan's programming.
William Bryan was a rather large man, weighing 386 pounds. He has been variously referred to as the most brilliant man in the field of hypnotism and as a, quote, misguided genius. His private practice involved sex therapy, and by his own admission, he frequently had sex with his female patients. Did William Bryan believe that a subject could be programmed to perform acts that were out of character? Let's listen.
You have to have the person locked up physically, and there is also the use of long-term hypnotic suggestion, probably drugs, whatever, and so on. Under these situations where you have all this going for you, yes, you can brainwash a person to do just about anything.
Did William Bryan have anything at all to do with Robert Kennedy's accused killer? Well, in the year before his death in 1976, Bryan reportedly bragged to 2 prostitutes who serviced him regularly that he had, in fact, hypnotized Sirhan. Bryan also liked to brag about his most crowning achievement, the deprogramming of Albert DeSalvo, the Boston Strangler. In Sirhan's notebook, that strange document with page after page of almost indecipherable trance-induced scribbling, there appears the entry, "God help me, please help me. Salvo, di DeSalvo, die salvo." It's a curious notation to be sure, but is it possible that while working upon Sirhan, the programmer couldn't help talking about his favorite subject, and that this entry, by way of the captured mind of Sirhan, is really the palm print of Dr. William Bryan? If we take Sirhan's words, "It's just not me," at face value, then who was it? What bad dream befell this young man?
It's my handwriting. They are my thoughts, but I don't remember them. They are the writings of a maniac. They're not the writings of me now.
In the spring of 1992, a petition was brought before the Los Angeles County Grand Jury requesting the appointment of a special prosecutor to investigate the Los Angeles Police Department for willful and corrupt misconduct in its investigation of the murder of Robert Kennedy. This request was signed by over 50 notables, including Arthur Schlesinger Jr., Frank Mankiewicz, Norman Mailer, Sam Dash, Cesar Chavez, and Oliver Stone. It was accompanied by 800 pages of exhibits documenting the LAPD's destruction of evidence, falsification of evidence, and coercion of witnesses. Whether this request will ever be adequately acted upon is uncertain. It is, though, a near certainty that those who conspired to murder Robert Kennedy will never be apprehended or brought to justice. On the other hand, historians a century from now will not have to examine these events through the filter of political expedience. They will see a conspiratorial mosaic, incomplete but unmistakable.